and tell me what you learned.
Fighting for love.
Sorry? Fighting for love. What were you fighting about? Sorry? Can anybody type in the chat box maybe or unmute? What were you fighting about? Did you all fight over the last one week, 1 month? Or it's been peaceful?
It was about
Sorry?
discussing about the arguments that you have, ensuring that uh, we need to sort out the matter then and there rather than dragging it out.
Fair enough. Okay, great. Do you all know what kind of fighters you all are? Anyone is a machine gun fighter here? No one. Okay, fine. So I think what you learned and a few take-home messages is that we all fight. Yeah, we all fight as couples. It is undeniable because we all have different background, different differences. Our upbringing is different. We sometimes have unmet needs, unsolved, unresolved issues, and we bring that into our marriages. And that sort of affects the way we relate with our spouse, resulting in arguments, tiffs, so on and so forth. And that's fine. That's normal. It is normal to argue. It's normal to fight, but what is not normal is to allow it to hurt the relationship and allow it to just fester and affect. And I think I'm sure you all learned about how Christian couples should fight. Yeah, I'm sure you learned how Christian couples should fight. So and I think these are a few pointers that it's good to take back home of how you all can fight and how you must never allow at least as far as possible, the sun to set on your anger. Okay, so we move on to today's session. Okay, today's session is titled being pro-life. When you hear this word pro-life or being pro-life, what's the first thing that comes into your mind? You can unmute and say, no problem. No one's going to eat you here. No one's going to operate on you also. Yeah, any idea? What's the first thing that comes when you say pro-life? Nobody? Or we can't hear you.
From the moment of conception to natural death, standing with life.
Okay, fair enough. Really good. Yes, standing with life, being one with life. Some people consider being pro-life as having a lot of children. Yeah, being pro-life is having a lot of children, or being open to life. Should the church really have a say about this? Should the church really have a say about how many children we have? Should the church, decide, or should couples really decide? Like a few pointers we shall reflect on, this evening. But first, I'd like to tell you a small story. So I was at my batch reunion, my 20-year batch reunion. And my wife and I, many of us came with our spouses and children. And my wife and I were the only couple, so around 45 of my batchmates came. And my wife and I were the only couple who had 3 children. So naturally, we got a lot of questions. Oh, 3 children, how you manage? We barely manage with 1. 2 is driving us around the bend. How do we manage? Jokingly, before marriage, we had discussed or playfully asked each other, how many kids would we like? And each of us just off the top of our head said 3. Yeah, and now when we are at 3 with 3 kids, I believe God is calling us at every stage of our life to discern, our family. How big is our family? Do we want to grow our family further? But in today's world, we see this ideology, or this ideology is crept in for a long time. I'm sure you heard of Hum Do Hamare Do way back in the 1960s. It's there on all the advertisements. It was highly propagated by the government. Hum do, hamare do. This cute little couple with 2 children. And if you had a boy and a girl, amazing, yeah, amazing. Like your family was complete. And this ideology was pushed so much that so many of our couples have followed this. 2 children any more is a huge problem, and this is enough. This is it. But now today, society has gone one step further. No more hum do, hamare do. It's hum do, and that's it. Like we call it as DINK, the double income, no kids. Where people get married, they don't want children. They just want to have a good time, roam the world, fancy pictures on Instagram, or some have even pets and just want to be pet parents. And children are not in the equation. So what we need to go back to God's plan for marriage. And Saint John Paul the Great has something wonderful to say. Saint John Paul the Great has something wonderful to say. And he says, as the family goes, so goes the nation, and so goes the whole world that we live in. And if the family is broken, if the family is fragmented, then immediately society starts getting affected. And, as a whole, the nation starts getting affected. And that's so true. And the base point of the family is, of course, marriage. And if marriage is affected, things start getting fragmented in society. And so we need to take up, we need to reflect on the marriage vows that we took. I don't know who's married the youngest over here, who's married the earliest, but I hope you remember your marriage vows. If you're not, we'll display it on the screen for you. So you were asked 3 questions. I don't know if you remember, but those questions were certainly not who is the band, who is the DJ, or who is the caterer, or things like that. The questions were something a bit more serious. Maybe in the hurry of going to the reception and having buffet, or heading off to a honeymoon, we might have not paid attention to those questions. But I think it's good to run through those questions to get an idea. Because the first question will be displayed on your screen. The first question is, have you come here to enter marriage, freely? Have you come here with force, or someone dragged you? Have you come here freely? And to that, we all said yes. Yes, I have come freely, or yes. And in saying that, we say that we are giving of ourselves freely to this marriage. Okay. The next question is, are you prepared, as you follow this path, to love and honor each other for as long as you shall live? And in doing that, we say we are going to be faithful. If we're going to be faithful to each other, no matter what, no matter the good times, no matter the bad times, sickness, health, so on and so forth, we are going to be there with each other. And finally, are you prepared to accept children lovingly, and of course, not lovingly and release them into the wild, but bring them up according to the law of Christ and his church? And we said yes, willingly. The third answer we gave, the third yes we gave. And in saying this, we agreed that we would be fruitful, and we would give ourselves again totally to each other. And so what we do is that the culmination of our vows, the culmination of what we said yes to in front of the altar, in front of the priest, in front of the congregation, of being free, total, faithful, and fruitful, the culmination is during our act of sexual intercourse. During our act, when we come together in sex, when we come together in intimacy, we are living out these vows. We are living out these vows of giving of ourselves freely, totally, faithfully, and fruitfully. But the act of sex by itself, between a husband and wife, must be both unitive and procreative. What do I mean by this? Unitive means that every time you come together, you must derive pleasure out of it, which is one aspect. But it is not the only aspect. Pleasure is a welcome outcome of intercourse, but it is not the only outcome. The other outcome is, if you have sex, you are likely to have a possibility of having children. And that is the procreative aspect. So sex must be both unitive and procreative. Can you separate the two? This picture in the corner probably will help you understand. There's this kid eating cotton candy. Can you eat cotton candy every day? Maybe you can, but can you survive on cotton candy every day? Impossible. Because while cotton candy is tasty, it is not nutritious. The man below is eating you call it boiled meat or a barely cooked meat or rare, whatever you would like to call a steak. Can he survive on that every day? Definitely nutritious. Is it tasty? I don't think it's very tasty what he's eating. And so, for food to help us or benefit us, it must both be nutritious and tasty. Yeah, both. You cannot have only nutritious food that is not palatable. Neither can you have palatable food that is not nutritious. And it must be both for it to nourish us. And similarly, every act must be between the husband and wife must be both unitive and procreative. Yeah, but what is the problem that the world sees with this? The problem that the world sees with this is they want to separate these two aspects. They would love the unitive aspect. So unitive aspect brings fun, it brings pleasure, it brings coming together, it brings closeness. But the procreative aspect can bring babies, which, has brought a lot of fear into the minds of people today. Yeah. So the Catechism of the Catholic Church teaches us that children are the supreme gift of marriage and contribute greatly to the good of parents themselves. But with children comes a lot of responsibilities, and with bearing children brings a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear in couples today. Should we have a child? What are all these fears that are accompanying having children today? Are these fears valid? What are some of these fears my wife Beverly will address?
So some of these fears include the fear of the world. Okay. So everyone is really concerned about global warming, toxic waste, scary issues like overpopulation. So I want to ask you, brothers and sisters, is the world overpopulated? Show of hands. Okay, let's see. Or someone can unmute and tell me if they think, is the world overpopulated? Or is it underpopulated? Or what are your thoughts on the population of the world? Anyone?
It is overpopulated.
No.
It is overpopulated. Okay.
No.
It's a
So,
myth.
sorry, it's a myth. All right. So let's look at some of the statistics. Yeah. If you take the population of the world, okay, now I'm talking about the world population, and you put them in families of 4 and into a house with, like, say, a 2,000 square foot home with a little yard in the front, and you put each home side by side, okay, one next to the other, you will be able to populate the whole of Maharashtra and only half of Gujarat, leaving the rest of the world empty. So now tell me, is the world really overpopulated, or is this a whole, this whole fear that the world and media has created so as to reduce or make you so concerned that you decide, let's not even have children, so we might save the world. Lots of countries like Japan and South Korea are today facing real issues where they have such a huge population of aging people, aging men and women, but no young people to take their population or take their economy forward. And that is the reality of what is happening in today. Places like even China, which once upon a time was one of the most populated or considered to be one of the most populated countries in the world, by 2030, their population is going to decline so much that they're going to have a completely aging population to depend on. So brothers and sisters, all of these issues, while they might seem like big and scary because the world makes you believe and buy into these lies, the truth is that most of these issues are created by us because we all want to decide to move to the urban areas and leave the entire rural areas completely empty and underdeveloped. Brothers and sisters, we have to look at what is the reality and not the lies that the world tells us, okay? Fear of missing out or the loss of freedom. This is a huge fear for a lot of couples today. I know a friend of mine who got married a couple of months after me. And I remember the first 2 years, she said, I just want to travel the world. I want to see the world with my spouse. And they did travel. They traveled the world. They traveled quite a few countries. And then after they finished traveling, then they decided, I want my spouse to, complete his MBA. He started this MBA course. This MBA will give him a better promotion, will give him a better job. So they waited till he completed his MBA. Then she decided, oh, I want that one last promotion. That one last promotion really put me on the top of my company. So I'm going to wait till I get that one last promotion. So they waited till she got that one last promotion, only to then decide to have children and realize that she was having fertility issues. More than that, even her husband was having low sperm mobility, and they were really, really struggling to conceive. And it pained me to watch them struggle through that whole journey. Praise God that they didn't have to go through IVF, and they managed to have their children and conceive their child without IVF, without going through IVF. But this is the reality of most couples today, that they decide that, children are just, they're going to curb our lifestyle. They're going to cramp our style. So let's not even have children. Brothers and sisters, I can tell you, being a flight attendant, having traveled the world, I've done crazy things in my lifetime while traveling alone. I've woken up in different five-star hotels. I have gone bungee jumping, done adventurous things like playing with tigers, and I've done all these fun things, okay, in my life. My husband calls me crazy and adventurous, but yeah, I've done all of these have had all of these interesting experiences. But the trips that I remember the most are the ones that I've taken with my kids. We've taken our kids to places like even Singapore, and my older son was only like 2 years old, but he'll still remind me of stories that he went through there. Sometimes even trips that we've taken to the park, my son will remember all of those, and those are the exciting experiences for him. So, no matter what you do in life, you'll always miss out on something. But the true joy comes when you get to live your wonderful experiences with your children, because children hold all of these experiences very dear in their heart. Okay, next fear, the fear of losing your beauty. So a lot of women struggle with this, right? Because they're afraid of what a pregnancy is going to do. Does pregnancy change your body of a woman? Does it? Anyone? Okay, what are the ways that a pregnancy can change? If any of you have had children, had even one child, you know that a pregnancy is can change your body, right? In what ways? Can you help me out there? Anyone?
You'll gain weight.
Yes, for sure. That is number one, right? You can gain even up to 25 kilos when you're pregnant. Yes. What else?
Losing hair.
Losing hair, yes, totally. Saggy skin, someone said. Yes, definitely. Stretch marks in places that you didn't even know could get stretch marks, right? Like, definitely. And after you have your baby, okay, does your body go back completely to what it was? I've had 3 babies, and I can tell you, I still have a mom pooch. I still have saggy skin in weird places you don't want to know. I have lots of wrinkles all over my belly from having my belly having stretched to accommodate all my 3 boys, who were really nice, big, beefy boys. But yeah, so definitely pregnancy can change your body. Your body is never going to be exactly like it was before you actually had children. But I will tell you that pregnancy not only changes your body, it changes who you are. And that is the most beautiful aspect of having children. It changes who you are as a person. It changes you to be more loving. It changes you to be more kind. And, the interesting thing is that while we really fear that with our changing bodies, our husband might lose interest in us. But I think the wonderful part is that our husbands get to see a different side to us, a side to us that they would never see if we didn't have children. And the one way, I think for us, this was also a concern. And the one way that we worked it out is that we actually had an open conversation about what was the aspects that were troubling. Like I did grieve, like I had real grief about what the body that I was leaving behind. But it really took the encouragement of my spouse to say, like I love who you've become. I see every scar or every saggy wrinkle or skin that you see, I see them as warrior wounds. And it really, for me, that was so encouraging to see my husband really appreciate who I had become. And brothers and sisters, this is where your vows of your marriage come in play, where you'll be able to support each other through even times when things are changing or your life is changing or going through changes. The other aspect that really sometimes can trouble men, especially, is the fear of providing. As soon as most men see a pregnancy test, they are already doing the math, saying, "Oh, doctor's visits. Oh, how much does each scan cost? And if you're put on progesterone, how much does each tablet cost?" They are even considering a C-section, normal delivery, hospital visits, and the list can just go on, right? Sometimes they go as far as even thinking about what's going to happen if my son or daughter decides to do medicine or engineering. Will I have enough money? And brothers and sisters, they are all very legit concerns. They are all definitely, yes, kids do, they do cost quite a bit. But I will say they also help you exercise a lot of prudence in how you spend your money. Um, Sometimes it might take, often we want to provide for our children things that we never had. And we think, okay, that's how we are giving them a better life. So instead of driving them around in a Maruti, we want to drive them around in a Mercedes. And brothers and sisters, this is, I'll tell you, when it comes to children, these things never matter. The car that they are driving in or they are riding in never matters. For me, even as a child, it did not matter what my parents provided for me, or which car we drove, or the kind of house that we lived in. We lived in a small little 1 BHK house, and most is the fact that my parents spent so much of time with us. Every evening, my mother would come home from work and would sit down on the floor, have a tea, and just talk to us about our day, talk to us about what was going on with our lives. In fact, I remember 9 o'clock sharp was dinner time. No matter where we had to leave everything and make sure that we were sitting ready at the dinner table, because that was our sacred time together as a family. Our rosary post dinner was our sacred time together as a family. Weekends where we would spend time playing board games. These were not really expensive. These were not something that was expensive or something that my parents really had to spend money on. But we enjoyed, and those were the memories that I take back from my childhood. So, brothers and sisters, sometimes we don't need to give our children fancy vacations. We don't really need to give our children, fancy clothing. Even hand-me-downs, children get so excited by that. And I think what our 3 children have taught us is really how to be prudent with how we spend our money and what we spend on. Often the world can make our children seem like quite a burden. But brothers and sisters, children, if we take this journey of parenting well, and we take this vocation of parenting well, our children can be true blessings for us and can really reveal to us what is the real cost of having children. So let's talk about what is the real cost of having children. Okay, children make you more mature. Definitely. So, one example for it, I enjoy listening to music. Now, most often, I am not really listening to the lyrics. Most often, I'm not really listening to the lyrics of the music. I just like the beats. Okay, so any most trending songs or whatever, I used to just have them on my Spotify list and play them in the car. And one fine day, I heard my son pick up some of these lyrics, and he's singing some like very unwanted words are coming out of his mouth and things that I have not actually taught him. And I'm wondering, where has he learned this from? And only for him to reveal to me that he learned it from one of the songs that I was playing in the car. So simple things like this have really made me question every single thing that I do, every single decision that I make, from the music that we listen to the kind of food that we eat. If we have learned to even cut back on our sugars, because we tell our children that sugars are not great for them, and we can't be sitting there and eating down ice creams and chocolates like we used to. So we have started to look within ourselves and look within our own diets, and make really wise decisions regarding that. Even in terms of like what we want to expose our children to in terms of schools. because we are really, really concerned about the values that our children might pick up in public schools, we've decided to homeschool our children. So, our children have really helped us make very, very mature decisions about various aspects of our life, things that we never thought we'd have to be discussing, actually. Today have become a part and parcel of our everyday discussions. Children also have a way of really teaching you virtue. Like, I often feel like my children are this mirror of all the vices that I have in my life. Everything that is not so pleasing about myself, my children kind of show me that like in a kind of a mirror. And often that makes me want to work at my life, makes me want to really fix things in my life. For example, sometimes I find like my children are being impatient or are unable to wait, and I realize, wait a minute, they get that from me. Even in terms of like forgiveness, toddlers are the best teachers when it comes to forgiveness. There are times when I have lost control and maybe disciplined my children by giving them a couple of whacks. And then, my younger son, especially after he's been whacked, he he really has this whole meltdown and everything. And sometimes when I talk to him and I say, okay, I'm really sorry, I should not have maybe whacked you at that moment. Can you please forgive me? He is so loving. He's like, yes, mama, I'm ready to forgive you, but you have to give me a hug. I want a hug from you. Make sure that you give me a hug. And, for me, that is so welcoming. It was such a welcoming thing to see my children just ever willing to forgive me at any given point. And no matter what happened, they're ever willing to take me back. Another thing that, my children really helped me with is about my own religion. Like, I realized like the Catholic faith has a beautiful legacy of saints and stories of these saints that I had never even heard before. But because now I play it for my children, so I play this podcast. It's called Saint Stories for Kids, and I play this for my kids often. And I realize there's so much that I am learning about the saints, and there's so many things that I want to imbibe into my life. So my children have been great teachers for me, even about the faith. While I am teaching them about the faith, I feel like sometimes they are teaching me more. Um, Children will really make you selfless if you really want to give of yourself to your children. I remember there was when my second son was born, he used to be he used to have terrible colic, and there would be for the first 3 months I had to sit with him non-stop with him upright. So the entire night I would sit up with him upright and like make sure that I never could put him down, because he would just vomit and wake up, and he would have like, terrible acid reflux. But and even till today, okay, now he's grown up, he's past that stage. But when my youngest son often falls sick and his nose is stuffy, I have to sit up with him and hold him up. And maybe it requires me to lose some of my night's sleep. But when I look back at it, I don't feel like why do I have these children? It's such a pain or such a burden. For me, I look back at it and saying, I'm so glad that they managed to sleep. Like their sleep was more important, so they could recover. I'm so glad that they managed to get that time to sleep, and so they will recover sooner. So being selfless, it comes with a certain kind of joy when you're doing it with your children, and that is something that children really teach you. Children definitely teach you to understand the heart of the father more. There are times when I have corrected or disciplined my older son, and he comes to me and he's like he's so upset, and he's like, "You don't love me anymore." And I have to sit him down and like really assure him and say, "No, I discipline you because I love you. Like because I know that God has put all of His goodness in you. I want other people also to see it, and I want to take you to heaven with me. And so I discipline you." And this has often got me reflecting about how like God the Father disciplines us. He disciplines us out of love. Like sometimes when we think we're going through this huge cross in our life, and where is God? Like He's so far away. Maybe God doesn't love us. But when I'm going through that with my children, I realize that it's not that God the Father doesn't love us, but He loves us more because through our crosses, He wants to draw us closer to Him. Sometimes when we are in the throes of parenthood, we can often view our children as a burden, and we forget that they are actually truly God's blessings. And the only time that we can really understand that, our children are a blessing is when we become grandparents. Like this last Christmas, I remember Errol's grandmother. So now she's a great grandmother, okay? Errol's grandmother was at our place, and she's had 5 kids. And those 5 kids have gone on to have their children. So they had like a dozen other children, 12 grandchildren. And now our grandchildren are having children. And they were all in our home, and our home like was filled with people, filled with laughter. People were on the floor, people were sitting on tables, everywhere possible. We had people around, but the home was filled with joy. And I was looking at her and I was like, what a blessed woman she is to be able to be surrounded by so much of joy in her. Like she's what, 89, 90, close to 90, I think. I think she's close to 90. And in her 90s, she's surrounded by so much of joy and laughter. And this is when we understand that, our children are truly a blessing. And never will, I don't think she can ever say that, I wish I didn't have that 5th kid. Maybe that 5th kid I should not have had, or that 4th kid I should not have had. Like every child, there's nobody who's sitting on their dying bed thinking, oh, I should not have had that extra child. I think the only time you would have a regret is if you had not had like that extra child.
So to sum up, thus far, we've learned about, marriage. We've learned about the vows that we took. We learned about, that through, when we come together in sexual intercourse, we are living out our married vows. We learned about the fears that come with, having children, the fears that prevent maybe us or many people from having children. And we learned about the real cost of children. We'll now move on to the last part of this session where we talk about maybe current family planning issues that exist, and we'll take 3 areas here. So the church teaches us that we must be open to kids our whole married life. Now this might seem a lot. It might seem the question that comes to our mind: should we just keep having children? Should we breed like rabbits and have children? Our grandparents or great grandparents had 12 siblings, 14 siblings, name it siblings, cannot keep count of siblings. My mother has 4 other siblings, and my dad also has 4 other siblings, big families. But I have 1 sibling, and so does my wife. Every couple, I said at the beginning, every couple, at every stage of their life must discern God's will for their family at that stage. There may be serious reasons at some time not to have more children, or to delay a pregnancy at some point of time. Like I know this couple where the husband is just recovering from cancer. And right now thinking of another child is it's very, very difficult for them, because he's there's a possibility he may relapse at any time or not. And so at every point of time we need to reflect and ask, Lord, what is your will? What is your will for our life? So we now move on to we spoke about the unitive and procreative aspect of sexual intercourse, but sadly today the world tries to separate the two. I said the unitive aspect brings pleasure, that is a natural outcome that we want of intercourse, but it also brings with it the possibility of having children, something that the world doesn't want because of what we spoke, something that we also might not want sometimes as married couples. And maybe we might look forward to our first child, and maybe after our first child, maybe what should I do? Should I not? I remember when we had our first child and we had Liam, our gynaec asked us, what form of contraception would you like to use? Because you should not be seeing me for another 2 years. Please make sure you space your pregnancy. I don't know if any of you all have offered this. She said, I have this wonderful option is called the copper T. It's a T-shaped device introduced into your vagina, and you can keep it there. And when you're ready to have your next child, just come and we'll remove it out, and you can keep trying again. Second, we said, I'm sorry, we don't contracept, and we'll figure it out. And we came back 2 years later, and voila, we came back for Theo. This time, she did not ask us any further questions. But this is something that is commonly asked. In India, because of the Hum Do Hamare Do policy, it is quite common after the second child to ask, and in many places in India, in the north and northeastern, to sometimes force the mother to tie her tubes. Yeah, to force the mother to tie her tubes so that there is no quote unquote fear or worry of engaging in intercourse and having children. Yeah, so I'd like to very briefly touch on some of these methods, that we might use. I'm sure we're familiar with a lot of them, like the condoms, like the pills, jellies. But I'd like to talk about a couple that are commonly used. And one of them is a copper tea. And the copper tea is very commonly propagated in our country because of its so-called ease of use. While a copper tea prevents or is a contraceptive, it is so only in 20% of cases. But in 80%, it is an abortifacient, which means and often it happens that the sperm and the egg unite. And we all know that life is created at fertilization when a sperm and egg unite. In 80%, the copper from the device leaks out often, and it aborts this so-called clump of cells, which people try to name it as. It aborts the forming fetus from the lining of the uterus in 80%. But no one tells us this, right? We just told it is a contraceptive. Yeah, so it's an abortifacient more often than not. There are many couples who use, again, quote unquote, what people call as Catholic contraception. There is nothing called Catholic contraception, but many people feel I am not using anything, and they use what's called as a withdrawal method, which is instead of ejaculating into the vagina of the woman, they will withdraw and spill their semen. Some call it as onanism, named after Onan from the book of Genesis, who spilled his semen, and it displeased God. I think we know that it displeased God, and he was put to death. It is not what you call acceptable, because again it's going against the vows that we took. We are not while we may give of ourselves totally, we are not giving off our fertility. We are withholding that or withdrawing that. We are certainly not open to being fruitful. And so tube tying, like I said, tube tying is more common in women and propagated rather than men. And basically every action, whether as an end or as a means to hinder a pregnancy from taking place, is, as the church calls, the catechism teaches us, it is intrinsically evil. But what happens if, despite using every form of contraception under the earth, pregnancy happens? What is the choice? And this is a problem that faces the majority of the country faces. Because the thought process was you never wanted the child in the first place, abortion seems like a very simple option. Yeah, abortion seems like a very simple option. I know this lady in the hospital where I work in who delivered her second child just 4 days ago. Her first child was 10 years old, which she delivered 10 years ago. In the space of the last 10 years, she's had 4 abortions because she didn't want 4 of the children. Yeah, and so these are the unwanted when contraceptives so-called fail, and they do very often because we don't want the child itself, a thought process. We take abortion as a very simple outlet. And if you see this chart over here, almost 96% is for I just don't want the baby, unspecified reasons. There is no no reason why I don't want. And this is almost every sort of 2 children or every one child is aborted every 2 seconds. Yeah, in the world, and it's an astounding figure. Yeah, literally, while we're speaking, multiple abortions are taking place. So contraception was not created to not have children. There is another foolproof way of not having children if you want, and that is abstinence. Contraception was created to use the partner without the fear of children, to seek the pleasure that comes out of intercourse without the fear of children. If you don't want to have child, abstain. If you don't know any other way, church calls us to abstain. But using contraception, you tend to use the partner for your pleasure itself. And today a lot of couples are doing this. They're seeing, am I compatible with my spouse? So I will live in before, I'll go and enter into live in relationship just to see if I'm sexually compatible. And if I am, then I will get married. But the fallacy with this is your partner will never, or especially the girl, the man, of course, but the girl, you will never stay attractive always. In the sense they will age, and as we spoke about, and you base the entire relationship on a sexual attraction, which wanes with time. You don't base it on, okay, can I build an entire family with this person? Can I grow in my relationship and holiness with this person? But rather, I want someone who I'm sexually compatible with, and we know the results of of these live-in relationships and how many ultimately end up separating. So this is the first aspect of family planning and the problems that exist today. The second is a big issue, which is infertility. Infertility is a major issue today. There are lots of reasons for infertility, right? From the food that we eat to stress levels to maybe women getting married later and later. Many people say that in the corporate world today, menopause is hit at 35. That is astounding. Yeah, but it's true. These are important figures, and some people are trying to start their families at 35. Yeah, well, many are sort of ending their egg producing capacity at 35. That is astounding. It is also ironic that teenagers and unwed people have so-called unplanned pregnancies, but later on, when you really want to have a pregnancy, you struggle. But I think we need to understand that a child is a gift from God. Just like a gift that you and I may get for our birthday party, a child is a gift, and we are not due that gift from God. If we are not due that gift, as much as we would like a gift and as much as we would like a child, God does not owe us a child. God may bless us. And that's why I think we all grow up saying, this is a gift from God. Because a gift may be given or a gift may not be given. And so what does the church teach us? What does the church teach us if tomorrow, if we struggle with infertility or if we cannot have children? The church teaches us that while we continue to come together in union, when we continue to engage in intercourse, if we cannot have children, we open to the idea of adopting children, adopting maybe some poor family. Maybe if you're not possible to physically adopt, spiritually adopt families. But what if the couple really wants to have children? Yeah, maybe adoption is not enough. I want a child, and that is sadly what the world wants today. If I cannot have a child, then I will create a child. And so we have got, IVF that has come about, in vitro fertilization. It is there in your backyard. You look out of your window, you have billboards. And at some point of time, we've been numb to this idea that, what is wrong with IVF? I'm getting a baby. I'm having a baby. It has been the cry of my life and, a dream of my life. And I got that. I would like a disclaimer over here. No child, whether born out of IVF, rape, or normal, is any less worth than your and my children. The worth of a child does not change no matter how he or she is born, through what way, through rape, through IVF. That, however, does not make the process of IVF moral. The end never justifies the means. Yeah. And so while some of our children or some of our relatives may have been born through IVF, it is not, the child is extremely precious and beloved, but we need to question the method. And why do we need to do this? I think the first thing we need to talk about is there is no conjugal act. There are many, and we'll not come to all. We'll briefly run through this. We can take it at a separate time, but there's no conjugal act, that the child is created in a dish. You can see this diagram to help you understand. A child is created, the semen sample is collected through masturbation. It's very expensive procedure. Sometimes you have a donor because the man or the woman cannot donate the egg or sperm. And so a third party is involved. Sometimes a fourth party is involved because neither can, give of it. And so children are like manipulated, like they are created in a lab. They are created in a lab, in a dish, like this petri dish. They are literally subject to quality control. Which child is good, which child is bad. Okay, this child is not doing well. Let's chuck this child out. But when sperm and egg is united, you have a life created in that dish. And so to increase success rate, you create around 6 to 10 lives. But when you want to implant these in the womb, in the uterus, you implant 2 or 3 and all start growing. And you realize, I don't want 3 kids. It's way too much. And so you inject potassium chloride into the heart of the growing babies, and you say, you know what, I'm done. I just want one. No, I just want two. Because and that's very common why twins are born out of IVF, because people choose to keep two and two and done, sort of to speak. And so there's something called a selective reduction or selective abortion. And all the remaining embryos that remain in that dish, either the tap is opened and they are washed out, they're thrown out, or they're frozen and kept in freezers for years to come. And this is why the church is against it. It speaks against, because it affects the very dignity of life. It affects the very dignity of life, because life is treated like, a commodity to be just thrown. There are other problems, of course, with IVF, which are there on your screen. You need a surrogate sometimes. You're using other women. There's this egg sharing business. Often there's this whole documentary done about a doctor who impregnated 96 of his patients just for greater outcome. There's sex trafficking and so on and so forth. So IVF there's got a very, very dark side. And the only so-called silver lining being that a child is born out of it. But like I said, the end does not justify the means. I'm coming to the final part of this session. If I am saying be open to children, be unitive and procreative, but I'm also saying at the same time, you may space your children. You may not have so many children as you want. But I'm also saying don't use contraception. What exactly am I saying? How am I supposed to, space my families? Can I not have sex at all? Few people in the past, maybe our parents and elders, they had one child, they abstained for years together till the next child, because they knew contraception was wrong, but they didn't know any other way of how they could regulate their pregnancies. And so they abstained till 2 years, 3 years when they were ready for another child, and so on and so forth. Many, many families I know, still do this. But the church offers us this beautiful method, which is called as natural family planning. I like to use a term that Pope Paul VI propagated, called natural regulation of procreation, which is far better, natural regulation of pregnancy, which uses the natural cycle of the woman. You can see in this chart on your screen, there is a time in the month, I will not get into details. You can contact us later or Jasmine for more details. There's a time in the month where a woman bleeds. There's a time in the month where a woman releases her egg and she's fertile. And there's a time, another huge gap where she is not fertile at all. And you use the knowledge of the cycle to come together in intercourse if you want to try for a child, or to abstain from intercourse if you, for reasons best known to you, you do not want to have a child at that time. But somewhere that thought may cross your mind. So what is so different in this and contraception? It is the whole disposition of the heart. In NFP or in NRP, you are being open to life. You're not bringing anything contra, againstception, life. You're not bringing anything in the way, whether it's a condom, it's a pill, it's some other device, in the way of life. You're open to life. But you are, in this method, you are just using the natural cycles to abstain or to come together. It is like a gift. It is rude to not receive a gift if someone is giving you a gift. If God is giving you a gift, it's rude not to receive it. But it is certainly not rude if tomorrow you cannot, for some reason, have a party, because you cannot work with the details of, arrangements and everything, and you cannot afford it. It's not rude to say, I'm sorry, I cannot have a party at this time, and I would like to, postpone it for another time. And similarly, we use the natural cycles of the woman to come together or to, abstain. But that is not what all that NFP, brings us. We learn to, by the way, it is a highly effective method of planning your family, or more than 99% effective. Far more than contraceptive methods, far more than things like pill, far more than everything else. And it's organic, since everyone's looking for organic stuff today. But more importantly, zero side effect, zero cost, no problem on the health. Things like the pill, the copper tea, toxic, dangerous, can cause a lot of side effects. But there are other aspects of NFP that are beautiful. You abstain at certain times, which help you benefit the marriage. You realize that you cannot use your spouse for your own benefit all the time. Yeah, you learn to find a different way to love your spouse, not through genital contact always, but through other through other romantic gestures. You learn to communicate better because you need to communicate with each other through chart the various times of the cycle. A lot of couples and all the couples will be speaking to you here who practice NFP will tell you it has helped them improve their relationship. They experience a greater bonding, and it helps them, bring them closer to each other and closer to God. Yeah, so to conclude, my dear brothers and sisters, I'd like to conclude with this quote from Humani Vitae, which says that transmission of human life is a most serious role in which married couples or married people collaborate freely and responsibly with God the Creator. It has always been a source of great joy to them, even though it sometimes entails many difficulties and hardships. My dear brothers and sisters, being a father myself and having children, I will tell you that while it is a struggle, while there are many moments of struggle, especially when they fall sick and all of them fall sick, there is no greater joy for me than being a dad. There's no greater joy for me in loving my spouse in various times of her life, in various times of her cycle. Through the years, 8 years that we are married, I have learned that no one died from too little sex, but rather from too much. Yeah, it is fine to have moments where you can abstain, where you can love your spouse in different ways, and you can truly grow in your relationship in non-sexual ways. So I pray that all of you all in your various stages of life are always open to this gift that God wants to give you. And always remember that at the end, when you look back in your life, you will always think, of the child that you didn't have rather than of the extra one that you did. God bless.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ehrlson and